Hi everyone, welcome back to this Romeo and Juliet annotation video for GCSE English. This video is going to look at Act 2, Scene 2, and this is part 2 of the videos looking at this scene. Okay, so last time we looked in part 1 of the Act 2, Scene 2 videos. We just looked at Romeo in the balcony scene and how he is below Juliet in the darkness of the garden and talking to her and saying that it was love that enabled him to come and find her tonight. Juliet continues on. Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek. For that which thou hast heard me speak tonight, fain would I dwell on form, fain deny what I have spoke but farewell compliment. Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word. Yet if thou swear'st thou may prove false, at lovers' perjuries they say Jove laughs. O gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully, or if thou think'st I am too quickly won, I'll frown and be perverse, and say thee nay. So wilt thou woo, but else not for the world. So thou wilt woo, but else not for the world. Okay, so here Juliet's kind of saying she's a little bit embarrassed. She's quite flattered by Romeo's advances. She's talking about it's a good job that it's dark, she's saying that, but otherwise he'd be able to see the young blush that's growing on her cheek as she's kind of entranced by him. She's asking if he loves her, and she knows that he says he's going to say yes, and she said that she's going to take his word from that. But she wants him to be faithful, she wants him to mean it, which is quite an adult idea really. She's not really getting kind of like dragged away in these childish fantasies at this point. She's kind of thinking of this quite seriously. Also here she thinks if thou thinkst I'm too quickly won, you get this idea that Juliet is concerned that she may appear too forward. She thinks about propriety, whereas Romeo is being impulsive and passionate. You know, Romeo's sneaking into her garden and kind of adoring her from a distance and kind of talking to her and using this beautiful poetic language of the sun and the stars and the heavens to describe her, whereas Juliet is concerned that she's going to appear too keen and too forward. And you know, it's the really early stages at the start of their relationship. She doesn't want to come across in that way. She continues, In truth, fair Montague, I am too fond, and therefore thou mayst think my behaviour light. This is really key because what we see here are these differing expectations for men and women. Romeo is being much more forward than Juliet, but it's Juliet, the audience of the time, and Romeo perhaps she's the one that may appear to be improper and have this light behaviour and be showing us too fond. But actually, Romeo is definitely the one that is showing those ideas much more than Juliet at this stage, but it's more acceptable for a man of Shakespeare's time than it is for a woman. She continues, But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those that have more coying to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess, but that thou overheardst ere I was ware, my true love passion, therefore pardon me, and not impute this yielding to light love, which the dark night hath so discovered. She's quite apologetic of her feelings, and she feels that she's kind of got to make sure that she is being proper. We've also got this idea that the love is what the dark night hath discovered. We've got this idea that their love is cloaked in this darkness that is keeping it secretive because it's forbidden, it's taboo. Romeo continues. Lady, by yonder blessed moon I vow that ticks with silver all these fruit tree tops. And she interrupts in here. She says, Oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon that monthly changes in her circled orb, lest that thy love prove likewise variable. So what we've got here is Romeo says, you know, I'll swear on the moon that I do love you. But what we need to come to think about here is this imagery. Romeo we see often associated with the moon and night and darkness. He's kind of hiding in the darkness of the garden. And whereas Juliet, as we've seen before, is presented with this beautiful light imagery of lightness and sunshine and daylight. So it's almost that kind of they are the sun and moon of this story really. And Juliet is this kind of light brightness, whereas Romeo is this kind of slightly darker character in a way, with his associations of nighttime. So perhaps then when she says that the moon is inconstant, this could be a direct reflection of Romeo. Romeo is an inconstant character. Remember Rosaline from, way back in Act 1, Scene 1 and Act 1, Scene 4, where he was besotted with Rosaline, but now he's suddenly not thinking about her anymore. It's all about this kind of like deep, passionate love for Juliet. So he is quite inconstant in the way that he's impulsive, and his choices and decisions change really rapidly and really quickly. So Romeo asks, he's like, what shall I swear by? So what shall I swear my love by then? And Juliet says quite, rationally, do not swear at all, or if thou wilt, swear by thy gracious self, which is the God of my idolatry, and I'll believe thee. So she's saying, just be honest with me. You don't need to swear on the moon or the sun or whatever, or, make these grand gestures. Just be kind of honest. And Romeo continues, if my heart's dear love, and she cuts him off again. She's like, well, do not swear. Although I joy in thee, I have no joy of this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning. Notice the repetition of the word too here to describe their relationship. Too rash, too unadvised, too sudden. It really intensifies the fact that it is suddenly, it's all too much. Juliet recognises the quick pace of the relationship. And pace is massively important here, because remember that Act 1, Scene 1 was only in the morning of the day that we're discussing here in Act 2, Scene 2. We also have this lovely simile, too like the lightning, which compares their relationship to this idea of it's lightning. And if we think about the connotations there, this suggests that it was short and electric and passionate, but perhaps dangerous and also stormy as well. Lightning is quite a deathly thing. It's, it can harm, and we know that this relationship is the downfall of Romeo and Juliet. So perhaps this kind of links in with those ideas in that we set out in the prologue, that the relationship is going to be short, but it's going to be intense like lightning. Too like the lightning which doth cease to be, ere one can say it lightens. Sweet good night, this bud of love by summer's ripening breath may prove a beauteous flower when we next meet. Good night, as sweet repose and rest come to thy heart as within my breast. Romeo, oh, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? What satisfaction canst thou have tonight? The exchange of thy love's faithful vow for mine. So Romeo, he wants to exchange this kind of I love you too sort of vows, and he wants them to promise to each other. And his satisfaction that he's asking her for is the confirmation that, they're both in love with each other. So when he asks her, will you leave me so unsatisfied, he's saying, will you not swear to me as well this vow? However, thinking again about needing to make multiple interpretations or take multiple interpretations of things to bring our analysis to the next level, we've also got perhaps this might be less romantic and more of a comedic scene at this point. Is it perhaps that when he's asking, wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied, that he's actually talking about some sort of maybe sexual encounter that for his sexual satisfaction maybe? And Juliet then is perhaps toying with him and kind of saying, well, what satisfaction canst thou have tonight? Like, what do you want? And then Romeo maybe backtracks a little bit and says, the exchange of thy faithful vow for mine, and goes, okay, so she's not going to let me up to her bedroom then, or anything like that. So we could read it in both ways, and both are valid points as well in terms of analysis. But we might want to see if we can make multiple points like that in an exam if it's relevant to the question. So it's worth being able to make these, see things from two different perspectives. Juliet continues then, I gave thee mine before thou didst request it, and yet I would it would give again. Would it were to give again. Wouldst thou withdraw it? For what purpose, love? But to be frank, and give it thee again, and yet I wish for the thing I have. So what they're talking about, the it here, is they're talking about their love, the saying I love you to each other. And Juliet goes on to describe her feelings. My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite. We've got a nice simile here that compares her love to the sea. This idea of it being infinite and never-ending, but also deep and dangerous, yet, darkly beautiful as well. There are many dangers to the sea, such as there are many dangers to Romeo and Juliet's love, which we know, because in the prologue we know that it's going to cause their downfall. But we see these ideas being drawn out in her language here. Notice as well that Juliet is starting to move away from that kind of rational and factual language we saw earlier in the scene, and she's starting to become more poetic like Romeo. Perhaps we see her kind of gaining confidence in her feelings and the relationship at this point, and she's starting to kind of be a lot more metaphorical and poetic with her words as she maybe falls deeper into love with him as the scene progresses. Nurse calls within. Juliet continues. I hear some noise within. Dear love, adieu. Anon, good nurse. Sweet Montague, be true. Stay but a little, I will come again. And where we see the dashes here, we see her kind of swapping between talking to the nurse and talking to Romeo. But she tells him to stay. She says, wait there. She'll come back in a minute. And she exits. Oh, blessed, blessed night, I am afeard, being in night, all this is but a dream, too flattering sweet to be substantial. He can't believe it. He's this idea of the two again here, and we see it repeated here, this idea that it's excessive, it's an overindulgent experience and love, it's too flattering sweet, it's too unadvised and too sudden. It's a really intense relationship that is being presented between Romeo and Juliet at this point. And that intensity continues now throughout the rest of the scene as well. So Juliet then comes back. 3 words, dear Romeo, and good night indeed. If that thy bent of love be honourable, thy proposed marriage, send me word tomorrow by one that I'll procure to come to thee, where and what time thou wilt perform the rite, and all my fortunes at thy foot I'll lay, and follow thee, my lord, throughout the world. So here she's kind of going, right, okay, if you are honest then, if you are serious about this, if you're serious about me, that you'll come back to me and propose tomorrow. You'll send word to me that we're going to get married. So here we kind of see the rational side of Juliet. She wants to do it properly. She doesn't want him to kind of, come sneaking up to her bedroom for satisfaction before they're married or anything like that. So she's wants to go through the kind of the correct, avenues really. And she behaves in quite an adult way here. We've also got this reference to my lord. She calls him my lord, which is quite respectful and idolising as well, but also might have some more subtle connotations, kind of women's position in Shakespeare's England, this idea that once married to a man, they are kind of above you in that sense. The nurse calls again, Madam, I come anon, to Romeo, but if thou meanest not well, I do beseech thee. Madam, so we've got here the nurse constantly calling Juliet, which adds to this feelings of pace and haste in this scene and the play as well. The wedding's going to happen tomorrow. She wants the proposal tomorrow. So really quickly, everything is getting exciting for the audience. Events are unfolding in quite a rapid way, which keeps us entertained and it keeps us involved. It also makes us think, well, if the wedding's going to be tomorrow, we're still right at the beginning of the play, so what else is going to happen next? It keeps us questioning and keeps us intrigued. By and by I come, to cease thy strife and leave me to my grief. Tomorrow I will send, so thrive my soul. 1,000 times good night. And she exits again. 1,000 times the worse to want thy light. Love goes toward love as schoolboys from their books, but love from love toward school with heavy looks. Here, what we usually see at the end of a Shakespeare scene, and you'll have noticed this in other scenes as well, the end of the scene ends in a rhyming couplet, so here, books and looks. But the fact that the scene doesn't actually end here, the intention is for it to end here. She says 1,000 times good night, and this should be the end of the scene. But actually what we've got is this idea that they can't get enough of each other, they can't stay away from each other. He's retiring slowly, but then Juliet comes back and the scene continues, which just gives more kind of evidence to suggest this kind of the intensity of the relationship that's blossoming up between them. Juliet, hiss, Romeo, hiss. Oh, for a falconer's voice to lure this tassel gentle back again. Bondage is hoarse and may not speak aloud, else I would tear the cave where echo lies, and make her airy tongue more hoarse than mine, with repetition of my Romeo's name. So here she wants this voice of a falconer who calls the birds back. Here's a falconer with his bird of prey. And she sees herself as this kind of this loud, powerful person in the partnership between falconer and falcon, and she's the one with the loud voice calling him back. And else I would tear the cave where echo lies and make her airy tongue more hoarse than mine. She wants to be able to shout Romeo's name loudly, but again we've got those ideas that this relationship is hidden and secretive, and she can't do this. They can't be outspoken about it. It's all got to be quiet. Bird imagery really interesting here, this idea that she is kind of presenting as the predatory bird here, and Romeo is the one that's being caught. Perhaps contrary to what we'd expect in between male-female relationships in Elizabethan England, we'd maybe expect the man to have more power, but here it seems to be that Juliet is kind of the one holding the power. It's my soul that calls upon my name. Interesting here that Romeo refers to Juliet as my soul. Metaphorically, he says that she is his soul. Again, the intensity and depth of the relationship. How silver sweet sound lovers' tongues by night, like softest music to attending ears. Again, this idea of it needing to be quiet and secretive. Romeo, my niece, what o'clock tomorrow shall I send to thee? By the hour of 9. I will not fail, 'tis 20 year till then. I have forgot why I did call thee back. Let me stand here till thou remember it. I shall forget to have thee stand there, remembering how I love thy company. So she's kind of going, oh, I wanted to talk to you, but I can't remember what about now. It's kind of a little bit jittery and childish almost in her wanting. She just wants him to stay there. And I'll still stay to have thee still forgetting any other home but this. 'Tis almost morning. Again, kind of a little bit of a time indicator for the audience there as well. I would have thee gone, and yet no farther than a wanton's bird that lets it hop a little from his hand like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves, and with a silken thread plucks it back again, so loving jealous of his liberty. A wanton is a pampered child, so a spoilt little child with a little bird on a string, as you can see in this image here. And Juliet wants to be this child and have Romeo on a little string so that he can only hop so far away and she can pull him back and keep him. She's quite possessive here. She wants to own him, but in a sweet and delicate way. She combines this passion for him, but with also these childish ideas about love and wanting to kind of own him like a little girl, which contrasts with the kind of formal marriage requests from earlier in the scene, and perhaps shows how she is becoming kind of more poetic and impulsive like Romeo as the scene progresses. She loses some of that kind of formality almost. Again, these ideas of power here. Romeo kind of agrees. He wants to be the bird. He wants to be possessed by her in that quite romantic way. Sweet, so would I, yet I should kill thee with much cherishing. Good night, good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say good night till it be morrow. And she exits. Sleep dwell upon thine eyes, peace in thy breast. Would I were sleep and peace so sweet to rest. Hence I will to my ghostly sire's close cell his help to crave and my dear hap to tell. So what he says here is that he's going to go to Friar Lawrence and talk about the wedding with him there. We've also got here sorrow, morrow, breast, rest, cell, tell. We've got these rhyming couplets to signify the end of the scene, this sense of finality here. And it's finally coming to an end. Whereas it felt like it was going to end here with the rhyming couplet, but because they're so passionate about each other, the scene continues that little bit longer until it comes to an end here. And next time we'll look at Act 2, Scene 3 and meet Friar Lawrence. So, make sure that you've got your annotations in your books. Remember, you can come back and watch this video multiple times if you need to. Also, don't forget that you can add in any annotations of your own. It does not just have to be the ones that I've got there as well. Just so try and get much more out of it. There's a lot in this scene and there's a lot in this play that we don't have time to go through every time. So make sure that you are getting down as many of your own ideas as possible as well.